Welcome to Celtic State of Mind. I'm John Dykes, and once again I'm joined by Jim Simonetti, and we'll be speaking to ex-Celt John Colquhoun. John, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
John, you are the first guest in our new studio that was just opened today, and before we asked you in, we asked you to pick a record from that wall outside. Tell us, what record did you choose?
I have to put a bit of background in. There's a big wall of old record labels, and it has all the greats in it, as you guys see it. Some trendy, some not so trendy. And the one that I picked out that I thought you wouldn't have was Freda Payne's Band of Gold. And Jim pointed out that absolutely it was there. But also it sits in its pantheon alongside Johnny Cash, The Clash, David Bowie, New Order. You mean all the greats are there. Aretha Franklin, all the greats are there. It's I know it's not much of a compliment, but it's the coolest studio I've been in for about 30 years.
Oh, brilliant.
That's a nice
big compliment.
It's the first one I've been in for 30 years.
I was going to say that here, John. Is it the only one you've been in?
We used to actually record in the toll booth in Stirling. Beautiful setting. Really nice studio.
Lovely folk singing venue.
Aye, I mean, What drew you towards that record? Because you were wondering if that record would be on there, and Jim knew it was there and finally found it. So what draws you towards that song?
Well, it was one of the songs that when I was young, we used to go to a place called McHugh's in Stirling, in Bannockburn, and the DJ used to play it all the time, Fraser Hotchkiss, who certainly wouldn't be on A Celtic State of Mind, but he used to play that as one of his songs regularly. Every time I was ever in there, it was played. It's such a great tune, and it's kind of away from my normal shoegazing, miserable, depressing kind of indie bands that I'm listening to most of the time. But then you go away from that and you go to Marvin Gaye, you go to Aretha Franklin, you go to that song, and it's amazing and uplifting, and Gloria Jones, and but really my main focus is it always will be the indie bands, that from an early age.
You mentioned that, and you're actually sitting here wearing a Frightened Rabbit t-shirt. We've had big fans of the band on A Celtic State of Mind previously. How special was that band, and how special was the frontman Scott?
Unbelievable, incredible band, and I think much underappreciated in this country and beyond. As a lyricist, Scott Hutchison was one of the best I've ever heard, and that includes all the greats that I've ever listened to. The songs were tough to listen to at times because you knew the struggles that Scott was going through. But just the most amazing music, and for a band to be come from our country and to deliver that kind of stuff, and I know that huge stars in the music business love him, love his stuff, and he's much missed because he would have continued to produce amazing records, and Frightened Rabbit are an amazing band, and then he did some Old John stuff as well, which was amazing. Los Angeles Be Kind, such an amazing tune, and I love Los Angeles, so it kind of reverberates with me as well on many levels. But they're an amazing band.
The chap in question that I mentioned, who is a big fan, is JP Mason, who's the manager of the Twilight Sad. Is that another band that you would lend your ear to?
I'd lend my ear to them. They're not up there in at the top of my listening just now, I've got to be honest. But no, I do like the Twilight Sad. I like a lot of the new stuff coming out as well. And I found I was listening to something by Brian McClare this morning. He was saying that during the lockdown he went back to all his old bands. He stopped listening to BBC Six and started listening to the old bands as well. And I kind of did that myself. I was a huge fan of Tim Burgess's listening parties, of which he had an amazing one with Frightened Rabbit when it was the anniversary of Scott's death. And I took from that to started listening to an album completely through every day, and was kind of different because you kind of dip into things now with Spotify and the streaming. You kind of dip in and out too quickly, and sometimes you miss those classic tracks on albums. Yeah, we all understand that in the records that there was a lot of fillers, but some of them were just like golden moments in albums that weren't necessarily commercially viable. So if we did then what everybody does now, which is just skip to the song that they really like, you would absolutely miss some of the greatest songs of our time.
You mentioned Brian McClare there. Brian's been on a Celtic State of Mind, and I wonder, back in the 80s, were you and Brian unique? Were you in the minority when it came to, maybe having an interest in music beyond popular music?
And no, I think there'll be a lot of players that were like that. We were just kind of probably a little bit more high profile, and because I had my political leanings and I was active in that way, and because Brian was such a big star, he was known for that. Pat was another one. Pat Nevin obviously was another one. But no, I think footballers are much maligned, I feel. People always say, the thick footballers. And I used to do columns, and I absolutely don't think footballers are thick. I think at times they're undereducated, because we checked out of school when we were 12, 13, 14, 15, because we knew what we were going to do. At that point, it wasn't the fact that, I know I'm going to become a big star and make all this money, because all that money wasn't there. But we in effect checked out of education, formal education. I didn't mean we were stupid. It just meant we were educated in a slightly different way from the norm. And I think that there's no shame in just liking popular music, popular culture. Just because I don't like the Spice Girls doesn't mean they're not good. They're just not good for me. But no, we had some fun times talking about music. A lot of other players didn't quite understand it, and kind of in the dressing room humour kind of didn't quite get us. But when I first when I signed for Celtic, I was came from Southern Albion, and when my manager drove me up, because it was kind of a done deal, I went in there. They told me what I was getting, which was actually a wage cut from I was working as a painter and decorator, and I was playing part time for Stirling Albion, and I was working really hard, but I was getting good money. And so I went in and they told me I was getting 180 quid a week at Celtic Park as a wages, and it was in a little office at the back of Jim Kennedy's office. Davy Hayes' office was the manager, and him and Alec had obviously carved it all up before I got there. And I got a small sign-on fee, and so I went in, and Alex Smith, my manager, and somebody who now lives in Australia but I still speak to regularly, he said, Johnny, you'll be getting this and this and this. Yeah? Is that okay? Is there a question there? Of course it's okay. So Celtic were travelling down on that day to play Nottingham Forest in the UEFA Cup. So then that was fine, I signed, and Davey said, would you like to travel with the team? Well, of course I would like to travel with the team. So then Alex Smith had to drive me home to get some clothes. Drove me home, came back, and I think he had a yellow and black Jaguar. So we drove in, and the Celtic team bus is waiting on me. Now, I'm a painter and decorator from Stirling, you know what I mean? And I am crapping myself. You know what I mean? I genuinely, I know a lot of people say it, but I genuinely used to go and watch them. Before that, if I wasn't playing for Stirling Albion, I genuinely would go and watch them stand in the jungle, or at a younger age when it was too busy. My dad would take me and we'd stand in the Rangers end. Not when Rangers were playing. And so I'm driving up, and then the photographers got Danny, Murdo and Paul McStay off the bus to do the obligatory photograph with me. And then I had to walk on this bus where they were waiting for me. And honestly, I was crapping myself. So I walked up the bus. So everybody's like, hi, welcome, all the best, blah, blah. One person ignored me completely. McClare. Completely ignored me. Like, never even cracked. Right? And if you've interviewed him, you know what it's like. You know, he is. I've never met any man in my life, and I've worked with a lot of important people, a lot of really good people, a lot of really bad people. I've never met anybody that's as comfortable in silence as Brian McClare is. He does not care. He would sit there for ages with you and just, like, I've seen him doing it in meetings, and he just sits there and, like, just sits there. It's hilarious. If you know him. If you don't know him, you think he's the most ignorant person in the world. Walking on that bus, I thought he was the most ignorant person in the world. Because I kind of knew his vibe by that time and thought, oh, that's a kind of...
Exactly.
Someday I'll kind of... We'll migrate together. It wasn't until we'd actually hooked up and we'd become really close friends that he told me it was because I thought I was there to steal his place.
Right. And
he just saw that as a threat and just blanked me. But, you know, obviously you get past that, and Brian's still a great friend, and we speak. He's one of these people, and everybody should have them in their life, and probably will have them. Doesn't matter whether you don't speak for 6 months, a year, or 2 weeks. The next time you speak to him is though you spoke to him 5 minutes ago, and that's kind of what Brian is, and he's a top fella, and talking about underrated, one of the most underrated players of our generation.
Mm-hmm. You know, I know he's quite happy not to be involved in football at the moment, John. He's a big loss to Scottish football, isn't he?
Brian's got a great brain, great football brain. But we live in an era of style over substance. And people promote themselves. It's about self-promotion. It's about telling people how good you are. Without actually having to do anything. Yeah, I mean, I've got a small coaching business, and the world's now littered with coaches that tell you how good they are. Brian doesn't tell people how good he is. He doesn't go in and schmooze people well. He's not. That's not his gig. That's not his personality. He prefers to do the work and then let people judge it. But now you've got to get past that. You've got to play the game. You've got to play the game of kissing ass. You've got to play the game of networking. It's just not Brian McClare. Huh? Mm-hmm. It's not Brian McClare. He's not good at it. He just doesn't want to do it. And he said to me not long ago, you get to an age where you realise that what you want and what you need are two completely different things. And he's right. When you analyse that statement, he's right.
He's bang on.
And you mean he is a loss. 9 years heading Manchester United's academy. You mean, why? And I know him. I know him really well. And I used to go down and visit him and when he played with Man United. And you drive into the car park, and sometimes I'd just go, let me come to training and watch, because I love watching. I still love watching football. I love watching training. And you drive in, and so we'd drive in his Clio. Driving his Clio. And he's just driving his green Clio. He had a green Clio, obviously. So we drive in, and honestly, even at that time, it was like big Mercedes, big BMWs, Range Rovers, and all that. You know what I mean? And then people try and talk to them about perspective. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Money's not what motivates them. And so people think, I can't get Brian McClare, it'd be too expensive. I mean, that's not what motivates Brian. What motivates Brian is working for the right people, working with the right people, and his knowledge being taken on board. That's what's important to him. Of course, I mean, there's a lot of knowledge there, but but the game is changing. The game's changing, and you've got to change with it. We're definitely moving towards a more data motivated way of working in football. Mm-hmm. Not quickly enough for me, but I think that's definitely the way it's going. And I think that a lot of us that worked in the game or have been in the game for a long time have to get on board that data train.
Oh, definitely. You mentioned a couple of the guys who were on the bus that day who came out to welcome you. That's probably a team that's more your era, Jim. As a Celtic fan, I came a wee bit later.
Yep.
Great Celtic side: Paul McStay, Tommy Burns, Roy Aitken. Who do you think stood out for you, John?
In that team, Paul McStay was you get a lot of people imperious. You mean he was just like he had a swagger to him, and he's one of those players that I love to watch. That the game slows down when the ball comes to him, and it's not the game slows down; he just makes it seem that way. But Danny McGrain, even though he's come to the end of his career, what a player. What a player. Unbelievable. Not just in terms of desire. And I've told this story before, but I was supposed to be a long-term project for him, David told me. I played within, I think, 3 or 6 weeks against Dundee United. And I can always mind the first ball Danny gave me. He rattled it into me. And looking back in reflection, and I think I had a chat with Danny about this, he was making sure that I was good enough to play for Celtic. Mm-hmm. Because it meant something to him. I mean, if you couldn't control that ball that he fired in, but I'll tell you what, when he fired that ball in, he did it often when I played. When he fired that ball in, what an angle he gave you to get it back. That's the difference. A lot of people can fire that ball in, but even at that age, Danny would always give you the angle, would always give you the option that you got a ball under control and Danny was there to take it. He didn't want you to, because he wanted you to go at the fullback or go at your defender. But he would always give you the option. He was a top player. Big Roy, what an attitude. I mean, better player than people thought technically, but what an attitude. I mean, absolutely. I mean, if you could bottle that and put it in players, more difficult to find now for a variety of reasons, society, also the way the game's played. Mm-hmm. But Tommy Burns, again, using one word, elegant. In saying that, Tommy got to play in a way that's really difficult to play now because he got to cheat. You got to. You're at Celtic. You never got to be under that much pressure all the time. So Tommy would just take that 5 yards. You got the ball and he'd be on you. But elegant, and I mean, left footers always look more elegant than us chunky right footers, you know. And
I'd agree with that.
You mean they just do. They just do. And but you mean tremendous. You look at that team. You know, Alan McInally, mm-hmm. and then Morris came. I mean, no matter what you say, these are top players. Eh?
Yeah,
top players. Paki Bonner, top goalie, and you mean Murdo? I mean, good, like just top players.
Yeah.
I mean, that knew the game, knew what to do, knew how to handle that crowd, knew how heavy that jersey is. It's a heavy jersey, that.
Did you find that as a Celtic fan, John, the expectation that you put on yourself, I guess, but also maybe friends and family?
No, I didn't. I was young, eh? When you're young, you don't care. When you're young, it's going out, like, just enjoying it. Just nothing phases you. You mean just go out there and you play, and you playing in front of the jungle. You play in front of the jungle. It's unbelievable. Standing, then you're playing in front of you. It's unbelievable. You mean, and for all my time at Celtic was brief. Nobody can ever take that away from me. And I never made it. I don't know what one was. I never made it into the back page of one of the fanzines that was the Embarrass the Hoops.
You did not.
I never made it into that.
You did not.
That would have cut me to the quick if I never made it into that.
But quite rightly so, John. Why would you get into the back of that? Because you done well, and when I used to watch you, I liked you. I liked you as a player, and your link-up play, as you say, as well, with Danny batting the balls into you, or whoever it may be, Tommy, Big Roy, or whatever. No, you don't deserve to be on that back page, to be perfectly honest, John.
It was an interesting time for me because, like, just playing there was amazing, and it's hard to describe it. You know, you go out and the first Old Firm game that I played in, because that's what they were back then. We went there, Ibrox. I think that was my first one, and I could always mind the Danny saying to me, "Listen, please, just drink it in. Drink it in. You never get a chance to make a debut in one again." I'm sure it would known it. I walked out the tunnel, and I swear this is true. The next thing I remember was back in the bath. Everything in between is a blank. Mm-hmm. The next time we went there was a New Year's Day game where we won 2-1. Morris scored, and I think Chalky scored. Mm-hmm. I'd laid the ball off at the halfway line, got scythed, and was down and never saw one of the goals. But that was the goal where Frank McGarvey twisted Dave McKinnon to the ground about 4 times, crossed it in, and Morris scored at the back post. My recollection of games, if you speak to John Robertson, who played with Hearts for many years, John will tell you not about his goals. He'll tell you the complete build-up to a goal that was scored in a pre-season friendly against Essen in Germany in 1988. I kind of just not like that. Huh?
You talked, John, about not appearing in the Not The View, the Embarrassed the Hoops. Had they ran a feature about great moustaches over time, you might have appeared.
Absolutely.
Because that was a belter.
It was, but you can't mention the moustache without mentioning the perm. It's impossible. And it was absolutely. I went into, I got a tape of this now in these days, but I went straight in and asked for the German adult film star look. It was absolutely straight from that. From the neck up. And it was a rascal, but that was what I was at the time. And people say, when I see these posted and people send them and they say, "Oh my God, how can you do it?" Because I did.
It was on.
I wasn't embarrassed with it. That was me. That was me then. In the same way that the business at the front part of the back mullet that I had when I was at Hearts, that was me then. It was, you know what I mean? Listen, there's a lot of things in my career that I've done, a lot of things I'm proud of. You know what I mean? I had a haircut that people used to go into Edinburgh and ask for a John Colquhoun. You know what I mean? How many people could say that?
That's brilliant.
You know what I mean?
That's right,
It's a big step in the back of my head. How many people can say that people went in and asked for their haircut and a hairdresser? Young wee boys went in and asked, you know what I mean? Score as many goals as you want.
You're a trendsetter, John.
You know what I mean? I've been called a lot of things, Paul. A lot of things. but trendsetter's just absolutely not one of them.
We had, last week we were speaking to Mark Wilson, who spoke so highly of Alex Smith, who was his manager at Dundee United. And obviously he managed you at Stirling Albion. Do you think he gets the credit he deserves for the sterling management career that he had?
Absolutely not. Alec is... The thing about Alec is he was a top coach. Well, we had this kind of discussion not long ago. I'm not sure he was a top coach. But he was a top manager. He was a top manager because he could get the best out of people in a different way from other managers. So different managers motivate people in a different way. Alex was so good to you, but not in a financial way because we're Stirling Albion. He just looked after you, just like from the time. So I was writing, as I said to you, I was writing a foreword for a Stirling Albion 75-year book, and we were talking about it. And there was a group of us. We all went to St Modens High School in Stirling. Robert Dawson went to play with St Mirren, John Philbin went to play with Motherwell, and Doncaster. Brian Grant went to Aberdeen, and we were playing for Stirling Albion. And we invited us all into training. It invited a lot of people into training, like. But what he allowed us to do, we would have what they call now small-sided games, 2v2s, 3v3, 4v4, on the pitch every Sunday for 5 hours. I swear, 5 hours playing. So we're playing. My dad was a coach at the club at the time. There was a couple of old boys, Robert Duffin, who was a great Stirling Albion player, Jim Burns, who played with Clyde, and honestly, he was hard as nails. He made Big Roy look soft. He was just like, even in those games, if the ball bounced between you, he'd rattle it off your back, yeah? Just batter it off your back. That was... So we'd play 5 hours every Sunday. Home for Scotsport. Home for a dinner. Sunday lunch, Scotsport, 5 o'clock. Amazing times. And Alec not only turned a blind eye to us tune up that pitch every week, he encouraged it because he knew that's where we learned. And I played with a lot of great coaches, under a lot of great coaches. I met a lot. I never learned as much anywhere as I learned in those games. Mm-hmm. In those games with experienced players. We played young against old. I swear we're still waiting for our first victory of the youngsters. The old guys always win, because they know how to win.
Yep.
Was the learning curve. And Alec, his style of management was amazing. But he just wanted to do things for him. I mean, he'd persuaded. Amazing. John Philbin came back. John Philbin, who played with Motherwell for years. He came back. He played in that Scottish youth team that won in Mexico.
Right.
And I think John was only part-timer. So he came back. And what one got, everybody got, right? The young players, because we're all a group. So we knew whatever John, Big Softy to us, that's what his nickname was, got as a sign-on fee, we would get it. So John comes back, like, listen, get yourself up there to the boss and get yourself, you've got a great bargaining position, come back for this World Cup, you've scored. You know what I mean? You got to get yourself, you could get yourself 50, 100 quid, because we knew we were all getting it. So, big man got, right. He's got knuckle softy for the reason he's called it. Right? So he goes up stairs. Honestly, there was swing doors at the top. The swing doors hadn't finished swinging and going through them, he was back through them. Right, coming back down the stairs, and we were all standing there like eagerly, like kids at a sweet shop waiting for a free sweet. It was free. So when you used to go with the ice cream man and you used to get the broken wafers and that. What happened, big man? What'd you get? They sort you out. I have to get my car serviced at Jerry's car shop. None of the rest of us had cars. You know, I mean, Smithy was wide as a Clyde, knew that whatever he gave him, he would have to give us. So he got himself the big man's car serviced so that he wouldn't have to give us it. And he comes down and it was fair, eh?
Brilliant.
It was fair. But he looked after a big man.
Aye.
And that's what he did. He looked after people. Mm-hmm. And that's what some of the boy Robert Duffin, who'll be 60 us now, still calls him the boss.
Right.
And then we had Bob Shankly, who was the general manager at the time. Bob made Bill look like the nicest man in the world. He was officially the grumpiest man in the world. He was like a kraken going about the dressing room. But demanding is what we needed. Mm-hmm. Demands. I mean, I've got a coaching business myself, and that's what we have. We have demands. Demands. You can be demanding of players without being angry. You don't have to be angry. You don't have to shout and swear at them. But see now, I sound like an old man, which I am. You've got to put demands on them. You've got to put demands on players. Not just let them do what they want. I mean, if they're not doing what they should be doing, you've got to demand that they do better. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? You get players coming and they switch off and there's two kinds of players. One, players that can't do it. Okay, you can't do it. Take them aside and show them how they can do it. The players that can't do it are messing about. Get after them in the right way.
Yep.
Because they're only cheating themselves. But they also, because we do it in groups of 12, you're cheating the other 11 people that are there. They're there to do their best. And if the good player's messing about and not caring if he finishes it properly and not caring, everything breaks down them. I mean, we teach coaches, get after them, but in the right way. Be demanding of the players. Be demanding of the parents. Yeah, we're not going to put up with that. We've only got them for an hour. Demanding. And that's what I think the difference between really good coaches are, especially at youth level, and average coaches. Demands.
That's what you're currently doing, box soccer.
Part of it.
I know that after you left the game, and obviously we've spoken a wee bit about journalism, moving into being an agent, and now you've moved into the coaching sector. So when did it come to your mind, I'm going to move back into the direct line of football and youth football?
What happened was that I came out of that and I did come out of the game and I did some media, some broadcast. I did sports scene, and I used to do it with Big Billy McNeil. It was hilarious, Big Billy, and I loved doing it with him. And sometimes I'm a bit either mischievous or bad, and so we're just about to go on, and I say, by the way, and we'd be watching some player or watch something for his feed coming in from England. I say, by the way, Billy, can't believe it, he's on $4,000 a week. And every week Billy's head would just about explode and say, $4,000 a week, we only got this for winning the European Cup. He can't even pass the ball. And his head would go. And it became a kind of running joke with us. But I loved doing that with him. And then when I did that, and then what happened was I was kind of just drifting a little bit. And then Simon Fuller of Spice Girls fame was kind of dabbling in football. But his company, 19, came in and asked me if I would become an agent, and headhunted me to go and head up his agency. Well, I didn't know anything about agents. I've never had an agent, and when I played, probably would have made a lot more money. So that was a classic one where I didn't really want to do it, so I gave him a list of demands that no way you can go, and he said, yeah. That killed me. But meantime, Simon had split from the Spice Girls.
Right.
And Simon had gone away for a year to kind of, I think it was to try and get over what had happened. And a way to do things like plant 19 flag on where 19 latitude meets 19 longitude or something. You know, that was kind of the stories that were going about to come. So anyway, I went but it wasn't for me. And then he asked me to be a consultant. And they brought somebody else in that was an agent who'd been working with a big company. And so then we started out, and we did Steve McManaman's transfer to first Bosman to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
And then we brought the first high-profile Japanese player to Serie A, Hitatoshi Nakata. He went to Perugia, which was fascinating. And then Simon didn't really like the football vibe. He kind of didn't really understand it. So we kind of split, and my partner and I went and started up our own business, Key Sports, which took a lot longer to mature than we thought, because we had this idea that we would pick the players, not just take any players that came or got recommended. So we kind of niche boutique. It took a long time, but eventually it bore fruit, and we had a lot of good players, and then we exited the business, although I'm still consulting with them. And when we came out, I had seen a couple of 3 players at Dundee United that I really liked, and then I asked Craig Levine, who's a really good friend of mine, why they were so good. He said, well, funnily enough, I asked the same question, because they were much better than everybody else. John Suter, Ryan Gold, that group. Mm-hmm. And it was because Ian Cathro had his soccer school, and Craig had then offered him a job as head of the academy. So he went in and he kind of parked up Cathro Soccer Schools, which was box soccer. And so I loved it. I love the whole... it frustrates me is that I can't get everybody else to love it as much as I love it. And so Ian then went to... and I wanted Key Sports to buy it, because I wanted then... I had this vision where we would grow our own players. So we would, in effect, have our academies all over the place where we would develop players, because I've still got this uncomfortableness with players being signed to football clubs at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
I don't think they should be signed with clubs till 12. I don't think they should be playing 11 sides to 12, 13, 14.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. It's been shot down so many times, but I'm pretty rigid in my views at times, and when I get something in my head, I think that, and I still think that. I think it should be not kidding them on. I think there's a lot of, this is going to sound bad, I think there's a lot of false hope given to parents, given to players that are in effect there just to make up the numbers. Mm-hmm. And I think it's unfair. I think it's like when you watch, which I can't watch, X Factor, the start of it, and there's all these people that have got no chance, but they're entertainment for the masses. And I think at times that's what academies are like. Plus we can't have, we in Scotland, we cannot have 30 good under-9s for 12, 13, 14, 15 clubs. It's not possible. The numbers just don't add up. The data doesn't add up.
No.
And we certainly can't have the amount of coaches to coach those players. So at the very least, what we should be doing is dual age banding, bringing it in. You always think of what you knew. Where did I get to? How did I get there? I'll tell you where I got to. I got to a place where I could play at a really good level at football without any coaching. Why? Because I played against older players, older boys, We'd play it when I was living in Denny. We'd play there, and then when you kind of got too good for that game, you'd wonder, and you'd find another game. You'd play in that game, then you'd wonder. The big boys would take you there, and you'd earn the right to play there.
That's right, you're bang on.
Because when you got there, if you didn't show that you could protect that ball and do something with it, they weren't giving you the ball.
Correct.
So you didn't get to play in that game. But now we all got to play the same age levels. We got to play at the same maturation levels. Mm-hmm. It's not right. We've got to be better now. We've got to think differently. And we can't go back that way. Why? Because at that time, my parents didn't know I was 5 miles away playing football. But I was 5 miles away playing football for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hours a day during the holidays. A day. So where's my coaching? My coaching was by realising what was happening in the same way in the small-sided games.
Your coaching, John, was with the older players because everybody was in the game together and you were learning for them unconsciously. You're learning for them, you're picking up different things. I'm in with the older guys. He's hitting him a wee bit harder. I've got to get a wee bit harder to get the ball. I've got to demand the ball more than the guy you're there, or I'm not going to get
100%.
Of course it is. And you're bang on about everybody playing the same age and whatever. This is a my bone of contention as well. And the 11 aside. So some of the things that you're saying there are actually very good and very warming. Because 7v7s onto 9v9s, state 9v9s, learn about the 9v9s and then develop and progress to the 11v11s. So that's what, as you know, has actually come in the last season or whatever, the progression from 77s to 9v9s. And then, but what happens is, John, with a lot of parents and coaches, bang, right into 11s. Why? Relax, enjoy the 9v9s, enjoy the 7v6, get the 7v7s going, then start to format a wee bit of shape with the 9v9s. But I still think that we should adopt the French system, where we were fortunate to go over and play in the Lyon International Youth Tournament, which is a 9v9 tournament. So when we went in there, they didn't go 11s till under 14.
Belgium's the same.
Belgium's the same. So there you get the progression from the young players. There are more touches on the ball. They're learning more. Just like you says with Paul McStay, the game seemed to slow down when Paul got the ball.
Absolutely.
So maybe that's what we're missing, and people like yourself to come into the game and to be in that think tank, whether it be with the SYFA, the SFA, or whoever is making the rules and how we go forward. Because as things stand status quo at the moment, I don't see us progressing anymore with the younger kids. The younger kids are important to have guys like yourself round about, where you can teach them to learn the game and then move them on to the next coach who'll take the next part of the game, next part of the development.
Jimmy, what you got to do is empower the players.
Yes.
Doesn't matter what age you got to empower the players. And people say to us, you can't do position specific with young players. We do it at 5-year-old. You can do it at 5-year-old easily. But you don't say, at 5-year-old, you're a right back.
No.
You say, okay, what we got to do, finish with a 4v4, and we'll play it. So you play, I know this isn't very visual, you play, one's playing as a 5, one's playing as a 7, one's playing as a 9, and one's playing as an 11.
Yeah.
So you do that, you play that game, and when the ball breaks down, the first team that gets back into the position gets the ball. Because all they want is the ball, eh?
That's right.
So they start the game with the ball. So when it breaks down, you've got to go back to it. So the players have got to think, I'm 7. So he goes to the 7. After 2 minutes or 3 minutes or 4 minutes, however long you've got to play, everybody moves round one. So everybody starts as a 2 or a 5 at the back, then he goes to 7, then he goes to 9, then he goes to 11. But you've got to make them make the decisions. The coach, you've got to give them the basic foundations, and you've got to get what's right to them. You've got to give them the right information. This is our problem. The players must have the right information to base their decisions. But see, when they're there, the coach shan't be shouting, you do this, you do this, you do this. You've got to let the players make their own mistakes. You've got to make them. It's like what you were talking about, Jim, going back to then. You have to make your own mistakes. You have to make your own.
Absolutely, yeah.
You have to make your own decisions. How am I going to get that ball? I'm going to get that ball by screaming for it. I'm going to get that ball by making myself available. I'm going to get that ball by going and scrabbling it, by scuffling for that ball and get it. And then see, when you get it, you better do something or you're not getting it again.
Absolutely.
So it's about giving the player, because everybody goes, we've got this big thing. When everybody says practice makes, everybody says perfect.
No.
No. Practice makes permanent.
Correct.
Permanent, not perfect. Because what if you're practicing the wrong things? If you're practicing the wrong things, you're in trouble, eh?
Yeah.
You're bang in trouble. And the 11 sides, you're absolutely right. You know, I spoke at a conference in Manchester on another podcast website called Training Ground Guru,
right,
which is really good. And they do conferences and what have you. And there's the head of the Belgian development, Chris, and he was on talk, and he says, people, we want to play 11 side, we want to play 11 side, we want to play 11 side. Yeah, no problem. He says, oh. And the boys are this size, girls are this size. You want to play 11 side? Yeah, no problem. Tomorrow we'll do an exercise. So the next day, I bring a bike, adult's bike, and I go, okay, learn to ride that.
It's too big for them.
Too big for them.
Of course it is.
Is it not possible?
I love that analysis. That's a great analysis, actually.
Not possible. He says, so,
love it.
but you put the goalkeeper in, he says, and he's the height of the bike and the full goals.
Aye.
He said, it's important. He says, how can you learn that? He says, because all that happens is they hit the ball as far as they want, then they'll chase it, and then the goal is too small, go and they get demoralised.
But John, you can't. You're right. You can't learn from that. Paul and I had a discussion. I think it was last week. Anyway, the transition from 7v7s to 9v9s. So the goals go up to three quarter size, not the full 11 size. So we started pilot scheme with the SFA with instructions from UEFA, but there wasn't any 9v9 size goals in Glasgow. So at Jimmy Johnson Charitable Trust, we went out and we got 9v9 goals and placed them at Cathkin Park. But all the rest of these other kids that were playing didn't get a chance to move up to that just that wee bit. It was still 7v7, and some guys were playing with 11v11 goals, which is absolutely crazy.
Better with smaller ones than the bigger one.
Absolute small goals all the time, because you're practicing, you'll hit that target, and whatever. Other people might have different ideas, but you're talking about the small-sided game. And then within the small-sided game as well, I'm talking 7v7s at the moment. And you see these guys, all these different coaches, they've got the big guy with the pace, we'll put him up the front, because there's no offside, there's nothing. We'll just keep him there. And the ball goes on to him, he runs on, and this kid's a superstar. I learnt from Tommy, God bless him. Tommy taught me how to play 7v7s with 3 and 3. He called it a low defensive attacking system, where he said, Simmy, what's going to happen is, when you're passing that ball with the 3 across the back at the beginning, you're going to lose the games, because the kids are going to lose the ball. But eventually, with them passing across the back, they'll become faster, they'll become sharper, they will then introduce the 3 players in front of them, and they're playing it and they're passing, and they're all moving together. So when you do progress up to the next size of games, they've all learnt to move and pass the ball, rather than the one boy up there standing and scoring the goals. So these kids are getting more touches of the ball all the way around. And I learnt that for Tommy Burns. And it was a great, great learning experience. The
one big difference that we've made to, I've got an unbelievable head of coaching, he's absolutely wasted with me, called Darren Murray. The one big change we've made from Ian's original system, which is an amazing piece of work. Cathro, for all that he failed at Hearts, Ian Cathro is an amazing coach. I've been around great coaches. Ian Cathro is amazing. I mean, the fact that everybody got emptied out of Newcastle and Benitez kept him, and the fact that as soon as he became available, Nuno took him back. I mean, these people are not stupid. Eh?
No, he's not a bad coach. It's impossible.
He's a top coach. I mean.
Yeah.
But what the way that we've changed it, that was a royal we, really, Dan, and our coaches, because I believe in empowering people, is that everything we do now has pressure on the ball.
Yes.
It's all opposed work. We'll do a little bit maybe in preparation. We don't like warm-up. It's semantic, but we don't really like warm-ups because we don't think players at 7, 8, 9, 10 need to warm up.
No.
They need to prepare for what they're going to do. So when they're preparing, we may do a little bit unopposed work, but really got to be opposed, because everything that we do and everything that I believe in training has to be relatable to the game. It's got to be a game scenario. You can practice as much as you want. You can practice passing it from me to you to Jim to Paul back to me. Great, we'll do that. And you just keep doing that hour after hour, and you'll be brilliant at it. See, as soon as somebody comes in to disrupt it and presses you, closes you down, it's different now. Absolutely. It's why I play a lot of golf now. I'm lucky. I play a lot of golf. See the difference between if I go out there tonight myself and hit some balls and get on that green and I roll the putts. I'll roll the putts in all day. See, when you're playing a game, rolling that putt in, it's completely different. Because the pressure makes it different now. Mm-hmm. Human beings react differently under pressure.
Of course.
So when you're a footballer, putting somebody under pressure is a trained and learned experience. So when you're asking them to make a decision when there's nobody around them, how many times, even in a under 10, under 12 or 13 game, do you have nobody within 10 yards of you? Never. So why do you train like that? Why do you train like that? So get people opposing them. Even if it's, you might be building up your session, get people opposed.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's I speak about that for too long because it's
no, but you don't speak.
I'm so passionate.
You don't speak too long about it. You actually speak with passion, which is good, and we like to hear these things because we're obviously we have a big love for youth football and the development of young players. And you're right, putting them under pressure. I says to Tommy and Billy Stark at one time, I said, they're a good team, Tommy, Billy. That's a very good team, a young Celtic team. He says, but let's see what they are under pressure. So it's the exact same thing as you're saying. And when we do our coaching as well, we like to think, put them under pressure. Get them under pressure, learn to play under pressure, to learn what it's like to play it at that high tempo. Keep it going, and make their decisions.
Make the decisions.
Yes.
Make the decision under no pressure, make this under pressure are too complete. Doesn't matter what walk of life you're in. That's just a human element that we've all got.
Aye.
How do you? It's like what we've all watched players, and you think, unbelievable. But when it comes to the Saturday, when it comes to the Wednesday, it's not as good, eh?
Aye.
The pressure.
I'm looking at your career. You were part of a Celtic side that made it to the quarter-finals European competition and obviously went out against Rapid Vienna under controversial circumstances. A lot of Celtic fans and players reckon we could have gone all the way that season.
Everton won it that year, didn't they? They beat Rapid in the final, didn't they?
Yeah, they did.
I'll tell you something about that when we went to Old Trafford for the replay or whatever it was called. So we'll go down and I'm always there down early for breakfast, and Danny was down. So sitting down, so like it was really early. So we go in and so I'm striding across and Danny's sitting at the table with somebody and I just did the usual thing. Danny's my teammate now, and I think I'm not on the same level as Danny, but I'm part of this team. I'm over that. Oh my God, it's Danny McGrain. So I'm going to just sit myself down normally, look for the coffee and look up and it's Kenny Dalglish. Now Kenny Dalglish, admittedly, my love affair with him went away a little bit between 1977 and 1980. I just had that kind of, that little 14, 15, 16 year old one where he's left and right. I'm not having anything to do with him, and obviously you understand when you become a bit older, you understand the ways of the world and you think, yeah, well, like I wouldn't have done the same, or like I didn't do the same thing. So I went there and Kenny started speaking to me. And as you can see and you can hear, and that this has always kind of been, I'm not short of words. I'm not like, I coined a phrase about Joe Jordan that he never had. Joe had a ration book of words that he didn't want to use them all too early in the day. I've never had a ration book of words. I could hardly speak to Kenny Dalglish because it was Kenny Dalglish. It was Kenny Dalglish, and we sat there, and he must have thought I was the thickest footballer in the world that he'd ever met, and he'd have met a few thick ones by that time, or uneducated ones. So, and then we went out in the game at night, and we went out. But I can always mind the driving into the Munich tunnel. It's a Munich tunnel now. It was a tunnel, and it was, the atmosphere was feral. Mm-hmm. And I always remember the Celtic Sports Like, we got there and it was like fever pitch. And they were pushing the bus as we got up that tunnel. And the bus was actually moving. Moving. It was that kind of tense. And it was like hard to describe. But yeah, no, I actually believe that that season that could have been it could have been a European final. Good player, really good players in that team.
You came close in 88-89 with Hearts. Great European run. And at that time, John, in the 80s, we were producing largely Scottish teams who could progress to these types of stages of the competition.
Yeah.
With your knowledge of coaching youths today, with some tweaks, can we get back to that?
It's a long road. It's a long road, and with a great respect, without criticising anybody, there would have to be decisions made that people don't want to make. It's difficult because it would be great to go back to those days when we all self-coached, but try and keep anybody's attention span for an hour now is difficult, far less 5, 6, 7, 8 hours. So it's got to be concentrated, good quality coaching, and bringing out the natural talents. See, I've always believed that there's players here. Huh? Must be players in Scotland.
Yeah.
Because I've always believed you can't stop producing talent, you can only stop developing it. And for some reason, we stopped developing it. Or maybe other countries have just went beyond us. Because everybody says but it's because we've got PlayStations. What, they don't have PlayStations in Croatia?
I know.
Oh, it's because their weather's better. Oh, so the weather's great in the frozen north of Sweden, and where Ibrahimovic has been developed. You're just not buying it.
I know.
I'm not buying it. Mm-hmm. There's talent there. And I think we're coming through. I think you're looking at Billy Gilmour's top quality, Karamoko Dembele at Celtic's got a real chance if his attitude's what it has been the last few years. I think there's nuggets there. We've got. I think Andrew Robertson, tremendous. Kieran Tierney, tremendous. And you kind of got, as we all know, they've got kind of that Danny and Sandy Jardine. I was lucky enough to play with both of them. Both unbelievable players. Mm-hmm. Unbelievable. For me, I would say Danny just edged it, but I probably would say that. But when I was at Hearts in that year, we nearly won the league in Celtic. Pipped us at the line. He was 36 years old.
I know.
Yeah.
He was 36 years old, and he was the best player. And they definitely got the Football Writers Player of the Year. I'm not sure whether they got the PFA, but it's always kind of skewed by different events and different traits anyway. But he was the best player in the league by a mile.
He was world class, wasn't he?
He was world class. The problem was he had somebody world class in front of him.
That's true.
Aye.
And you've got so we've got the same thing with Kieran Tierney and Andrew Robertson. And I think Kieran Tierney's going to go from strength to strength at Arsenal now he's fit.
I thought you meant somebody world class in front of him, as in you playing down the right hand side. No.
No, there's nothing in the world that I've ever been world class at. And it's funny. When you talk about my career, in some ways Celtic changed my career. Celtic, a scout called John Colquhoun had watched me more than 30 times. I know this for a fact. And then I came to Celtic. I'd never been a winger in my life. Ever. My boys' clubs, Stirling Albion, I'd never been a winger. I was always a striker. Maybe played I don't know what they would call it now, because the vocabulary in football now drives me insane, honestly. You think, the game's really advanced. Why? Because they have match day +2 and match day +1. What's that even mean? I know. How do you just say the day after a game?
I know.
Do you know what I mean? Low blocks. Do you know what I mean? Or sitting in. Do you know what I mean? All that's changed is vocabulary, so people sound as though they know what they're talking about.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean? Match day -3. You mean what? 3 days before the game? Yeah. Is that what that means? Yeah. You just say that. Drives me insane.
I know.
But I can't even. I go on such a tangent when I start talking about that stuff that I lose my thread. But yeah, it was those days were interesting. I think that we will struggle to get back, but I do think that we do have the wherewithal to qualify for major championships.
You would hope so. You know, you've got the nucleus, a group of players there, John, that you've mentioned. And again, going back to your point about climate, for example, well, the climate's not much
They're all
different
excuses.
down south. I know.
All excuses.
Absolutely.
Every one of them. I'll debunk every one of them.
The Republic Island have done okay.
Uruguay. You mean Uruguay with, population? Uruguay. You mean Holland's only got 9 million, we've got, 5 and a bit?
Yeah.
Right, all right. I'll settle for 50% of the Dutch players, eh?
Exactly. You were gutted to leave Celtic. You're a big Celtic fan.
Let me tell you about that. So, what happened was, I was going down to play in Wales in a end of season tournament. So I was in between me and the house. So I was staying with my sister, and the phone call when I think did she answer the phone or my wife answered. So it's Davey. I says, "No, who is it really?" So because Davey's never phoned me. Davey, the manager, never phoned you. So it comes on and goes, "It's Davey here." I went, "Who is it?" Because I just thought it was my boys behind me. No, can you come in? I've agreed a fee with Hearts for you. And I went, no. No, you need to come in and see me. I went, well, no, I don't want to go. I'm quite happy and blah, blah. So that was fine. So I said, so you got to go in. He's a boss. You got to go in. So we've agreed a fee with Hearts and blah, blah, blah. I said, well, to be honest, thanks very much for the offer, but I'm quite happy here. I'm 1.5 years into a 3-year contract for you. I said it was a 3-year project before you thought I was playing the first team. I've played 20, I don't know how many games, a few games. I said, so I'm happy to stay and keep developing, and I didn't really want to be anyway. He went, you've not really got a choice. And I went, well, he says, go home and think about it and come back tomorrow. I said, I'm going to Wales tomorrow. He says, no, you're not going to pull you out. I said, no bother. So he says, come back in whatever time it was tomorrow. So I said, all right, I'll come back in. So I go back in and said, boss, I haven't changed my mind. I'm quite happy to fight for my place. He says, well, just let you know what's happening. And for years I held this against him, Davey. For years I held him against him. He says, well, let me tell you what's in your future then. Or what's that about? He says, I mean, we've got John Colquhoun here, we've got Owen Deacon, so you'll be on the bench for the reserves till your contract ends, and then we'll probably sell you to Dumbarton or Morton. And I went, all right. If that's what's going to happen, I don't want to be, because Hearts were Premier League, they were in the top division. I was like, obviously you've made your mind up, boss, and so. So there was a financial element to it. I said, oh, by the way, there's a financial element still there before I left the office. So he said, yeah, we'll still sort of, because I had a small part of sign-on fee still to get, but obviously I wasn't going to be there, so he said, we'll give you a sign-on fee before you go. That was the first one. So I thought, oh, by the way, am I still getting my part of my sign-on fee? I've not had yet. He went, yeah, I'll sort that out. So I went outside and I sat on the curb and I cried. I don't mind telling it, but I've said that before. I cried. That was my childhood dream, and in effect, I was 85, so I would have been 22. My career was over, finished, because that's how you looked at it. 22, I've been to the top of the mountain everywhere down. So no agents, nobody with me. I got in the car and I had to go drive to Tynecastle to meet with Alec MacDonald and Sandy Jordan. And got to 5-10 minutes after it and wiped my tears away. Got my car and decided that this was going to be the next part of my life, and no choice. And no mobile phones at the time, so you can't phone home and tell what's happening and what have you. And it turned out the best decision of my life. I'm not sure what would have happened to Celtic, but I'll tell you one thing. I'm not sure I'd be much happier than when I went to Hearts. We lost the league that first season. We were bottom of the league after at the end of September. We lost that league. We had a group of young boys, John Robertson, Craig Levine, Kenny Black. Then with the older ones, Walter Kidd, Brian Whittaker, Brian Whittaker was hilarious because Big Roger was a great lad. Sadly misses a great lad, Roger. And I played with Celtic against Hearts, and so Wallace got taken off and Brian Whittaker got put on because I was roasting Wallace, and Wallace was playing left back for some reason. So we're now shooting into the Celtic end, second half. So, and this was a Danny trait. So as soon as I got the ball, he's like, get at him. So as I come, and Danny would come and say, just get right at him. I'll give you the ball, get right at him. He's just on, get right at him. So as soon as it's come on, I went right at him. So what does Roger do? I didn't have a trick. All these tricks that we teach, the CR7 and the Ronaldinho and the flip flop and whatever it is, I didn't do any of them. All I did was get people off balance, knock it, and run with pace. I had pace. That's why I knew when my pace went, my career was finished. So I didn't have it. So I just got it. I went. So Rogers nailed me. And now Roger was rubbish at nailing people because he was a footballer. He was a big kind of elegant mustachioed. He could carry the moustache off. He was 6'3".
That was a quality
moustache. He's a quality moustache, Big Roger, a great lad. And so I went at him, right? So Danny's next thing, as soon as somebody got his booked it, he'd give you the ball right away. He'd give you the ball. So he'd give you the ball right away. And you'd only one thing, he didn't even have to say it. Get back at him, He's just been booked, he can't touch you. You're deep in their half, Deal. Roger nails me again, Off. I'm not kidding. I've always meant to look up the records. It must have been 90 seconds, So it goes. I only find this out when my Hearts we're on a night out. He goes in. What a kid's taking his shin pads and he's hanging me off and he goes, "What did you forget, Roger?" So says, "Forget, I've been fucking set off." So when I went, I was sitting one day and I walked into the dressing room. It was pre-season, and I walked in and Roger says, "Oh no, last time I saw you, you tortured me." So when I got through there and Alec and Sandy and they made such a passionate case for their club, and it was full of kind of Rangers and Celtic rejects. Blackie had come from Rangers, Roger had come from Celtic, Big Roddy McDonald was there, and it was kind of the vibe. It was exciting. It was housing days. We played an energetic high pressing. Before it became in vogue with everybody, Alec, McDonald and Sandy made us press high up because he wanted us to get the ball as high as we could. So because that's where we were dangerous. Sandy Clark was up front. He was another one, the ex-Range. Sandy Clark and me and Robbo. Gary Mackay in midfield. Neil Berry, who was a bit the kind of enforcer, the hard man who couldn't play, was probably a wee bit harsh on him. Kenny Black, the player the fans loved to hate, that was our fans. And in the back you had Watty King, you had Craig Levine, who was just close to being the best player I've ever played with. We had everything. Sandy, and then Big Roger led back, and Henry Smith, who for years we represented David James, and I know man just said about David James, he was the greatest goalie in the world for 89.5 minutes. It's a half minute you have to worry about. Henry was exactly the same. Tremendous saves that nobody else in the league could make, but you just worried about him coming out for the cross in the 88th minute of the Scottish Cup semi-final and dropping it. But a great lad and great times in Alec, and loved to play hard, and we trained harder than anybody ever trained, intensity in training, and it was the best thing that happened to me. There's a life lesson in there for me. You think it's everything's collapsed and all over, and then all of a sudden it turns out to be the best thing that ever happened, and I never hid, and I think the Hearts supporters, I'm genuinely humbled by the love they have for me, because in some ways, as I explained there, I was really quite ordinary. I didn't have a trick, I didn't have anything. But I think I tried as hard as they would have tried if they'd been able to wear the maroon jersey, and I think that's what I did for most clubs that I played with. I think that's what supporters want. They'd love to have Messi, but if you can't have Messi, have somebody that at least gives you 100%.
Yeah.
And looks like they're giving you but not this, I don't know if you can swear, fanny and running for the ball and kissing the jersey and all that. I never did all that. You know, I think that's fake. I think that's a lot of times. I think it's fake. I think it's disingenuous, and I think that's just trying to buy support. I think I like to think I did it by my hard work, by my honesty, and I never held that Celtic was my team, even with them. You mean they know that I was always a Celtic man, but they also know I love that football club, and I don't hide it. I love that football club. They've been so good to me. I'm in their Hall of Fame. It's a humbling experience. I became best friends with one of the directors who sadly died a couple of years ago. And I visited with him every day and towards the end, and spoke at his funeral. And those bonds in a football club between a director and a player are few and far between. And I feel really lucky that I was able to play for that football club. And I had 2 spells there, amazing times. You know, we got to the UEFA Cup quarter-finals, and much to my chagrin, I missed a chance, but the goalie touched it. I swear the goalie touched it. Everybody says he didn't touch it, but he definitely touched it, and then I hit the bar in the second half with a header. And what would have been the best bit would have played against Maradona in the semi-finals.
Yeah, imagine.
Which was devastating for me. I've since met him. I did a book with him a few years ago, so I met him on a couple of occasions, and he was fascinating company. It was difficult to get him. We had to wait 8 hours one day to see him for an hour in a Madrid hotel. But fascinating character, and that's what football's given me. It's given me experiences that you just like. Everybody talks about buying stuff, material stuff. Football's given me things you can't buy. You just can't buy it. Don't matter Jeff Bezos couldn't buy the experiences I've had. Not possible. Mm-hmm. Not possible for him to play for his boyhood team. Not possible for him to go around Europe with a group of guys, some of us the same age, and enjoy the laughs and the ups and downs and the tears, and after losing the league, and joy when you win games, and enjoying the atmospheres. There's European nights have always been my favourite. Any club, European nights. The smell. Going to my first Celtic game when we came back up from Oldham. We used to live in Oldham, formative years. Then we came back up. My dad took me to the game. Basel, 4-2.
Yeah,
I can tell you after my dinner yesterday. I can remember. People think this is stupid. I can taste the atmosphere. It's a smell. It's a sound. It's those floodlights as you walked up to Celtic Park as a little kid. I was 9 or 10. Just hold on. If that's I'm looking at it, then the noise when the fans went crazy when the team came out, and the goals and the colours, and then to play in some of them, and then you go to Tynecastle and you play in. We were ordinary. We played against Bayern Munich. We beat Bayern Munich at home. We played against Atletico Madrid. I scored against Atletico Madrid. I had a medial knee ligament injury. I scored the third one. I tried to jump on the fence. I couldn't even get up on the fence. Unbelievable. And the smell at Tynecastle is the hops from the brewery. But and it was never quite brightly lit enough, Tynecastle. It was kind of just in those days lit enough that made it kind of spooky and atmospheric and amazing. It was just amazing times. So Jeff Bezos, you might have made 130 million yesterday, but buy that if you want.
Can't be bought.
Cannot be bought. Cannot be bought.
You've offered us an intriguing insight into a footballer's career, and I, for one, have thoroughly enjoyed it, Jim.
I've enjoyed it. I tell you, I think I was engrossed at that last part there, and I think I was living it with you, John, no going up to the game, and sometimes when the misty nights were there as well, it was great, and the smells, and you brought it all back. You brought it back.
Here's a spearmint chewing gum and a macaroon bar.
Absolutely. And do you know something? I really appreciate you bringing that back as well. It's brilliant.
Nostalgic.
4-2.
4-2.
Paul Wilson scored, I think.
Yep.
A cracker and a volley.
4-2. Amazing game. One that lives lives long in my memory, obviously.
Lives all in our memories and our hearts.
And will never fail me. Never fail me. Sometimes when you feel a little bit down, you think about these times. You think about these moments in your life, and you think about, I mean, not just playing, but also watching. And the good thing is, I walked away from the game when I still loved it. I know a lot of players that just kept going and felt like I love the game. I love the game. I love the game. Not so much that keen on sitting in traffic for 4 hours to get to one now, because I'm old. When you get old, you can't be bothered with the 4 hours.
That's true. Well, John, you've joined us on the first episode that we have recorded in our new studio, so thank you very much for joining us. Jim and I are very appreciative of you coming along to speak to us on A Celtic State of Mind.
Enjoyed it. It's been fun. I hope I haven't bored you too much, guys.
Loved it. Thank you very much, John.
All the best, John.
Yeah.